Some guns don't just disappoint, they betray you. They jam when lives are on the line, misfire without warning, or fall apart in your hands. These aren't just bad purchases, they're disasters waiting to happen. And yet, people keep buying them. We will tell you why, and what they regret most. Fifteenth, Mosen Nagant, surplus. Let's start with one that sparks debate right away. The Mosen Nagant is a piece of military history, a rugged bolt-action rifle that served in 2 world wars. Sounds cool, right? But here's the truth. The ones flooding today's market are often beat-up surplus units, not pristine collectibles. The bolt can get so sticky it feels like you're fighting rusted metal just to chamber a round. And that's assuming the corrosive ammo it was fed hasn't already eaten the barrel alive. People buy them because they're cheap and tough-looking. But the real result? You get a rifle that kicks like a mule, barely functions, and leaves you with a sore shoulder and a broken heart. Add in poor accuracy from worn-out barrels, and you've got yourself a glorified club. 14. Para-Ordnance P10, P12, P14. You'd think a double-stack 1911 would be a dream. More firepower in a classic package. But Para-Ordnance's P-series quickly became a nightmare for many. The compact models especially, like the P10, were notorious for jamming, stovepiping, and failing to feed. The triggers weren't smooth, they were gritty and unpredictable. And if you needed replacement parts, good luck. After Para-USA was bought out and absorbed into Remington, parts availability went from bad to non-existent. Many shooters found themselves stuck with a gun they couldn't trust and couldn't fix. That's not just annoying, it's dangerous when you're depending on it for self-defense. A gun that can't run reliably isn't worth carrying, let alone buying. 13th, Llama Max One, 1911, clone. Llama wanted to offer a budget-friendly 1911. But what they delivered was more headache than handgun. Made with soft metal components, these pistols wore down fast. Slide-to-frame fit was inconsistent. Some users reported cracked frames after just a few hundred rounds. And let's not forget the feeding issues. Hollow points were basically a no-go. Even full metal jacket rounds didn't always feed smoothly. Shooters went in thinking they were saving money, but they often ended up spending more on repairs, if the gun was even salvageable. In a platform known for its reliability and smooth trigger pull, the Max One feels like a betrayal. For every dollar you save, you add a new problem. 12th, Car K40. On paper, the Car K40 sounds promising. Small, sleek, chambered in .40 S&W. Ideal for concealed carry, right? Except the real-world experience tells another story. The trigger pull is long and heavy. Not ideal when you need quick, accurate follow-up shots. Recoil in such a small frame is sharp and snappy, making the gun unpleasant to shoot for extended sessions. But worst of all, reliability is hit or miss. Some users report flawless performance, others battle constant feeding issues. And in a self-defense weapon, maybe it works is a terrifying gamble. Car's newer models have improved, but the K40 is a relic of rougher times, and one most shooters are better off avoiding. 11. Smith & Wesson Sigma Series. How does one of the most respected gun companies in America mess up a pistol so badly? Enter the Sigma Series, an early attempt by Smith & Wesson to compete with Glock. Unfortunately, they copied the look but missed the mark on performance. The trigger pull is infamously bad, heavy, gritty, and unpredictable. Frame-cracking issues plagued early models, and even when those problems were fixed, the gun still felt cheap and unrefined. It's the kind of pistol that makes you question every shot, not because of recoil or accuracy, but because pulling the trigger feels like dragging a cinder block through mud. Many gun owners now treat it as a joke, or a reminder of what happens when design takes a backseat to shortcuts. 10th, Beretta Nano. Beretta's name carries serious weight in the gun world. That's what made the Nano such a letdown. Built as a subcompact 9mm for concealed carry, the Nano was supposed to compete with offerings from Glock and Smith & Wesson, but its execution was flawed from the start. The feed ramp design made it extremely picky with ammo, and a carry gun that can't eat what you feed it is a risk no one should take. The trigger was spongy and lacked any clear break. Recoil was harsher than expected, and ergonomics were just plain uncomfortable. Failure to feed and ejection issues became so common that some owners joked they had to bring a backup gun just in case. Eventually, Beretta replaced it with the APX Carry, a silent admission that the Nano missed the mark entirely. 9. Charter Arms Bulldog 44 Special. A lightweight revolver in 44 Special sounds like a beast, and it is, but not in a good way. The Bulldog came out swinging with big power in a small frame, but recoil management was an afterthought. The result? Punishing recoil, poor shot placement, and long-term frame wear. Early aluminum frame models were especially brutal, both on the shooter and the gun itself. Timing issues became a serious concern. When the cylinder doesn't line up properly with the barrel, you're looking at potential lead shaving and worse. Charter Arms improved later versions, but the early Bulldogs gave the entire line a sketchy reputation. And let's be honest, there are better revolvers out there that won't shake themselves loose or make you flinch before every trigger pull. 8. Winchester 1400. Shotgun Winchester has produced some of the most iconic shotguns in history, but the 1400 isn't one of them. On the outside, it looks like a clean, traditional semi-automatic, but inside, trouble brews. Cheap plastic parts were used in critical components like the action and bolt, leading to premature wear and eventual failure. The bolt system itself is flawed, with users reporting lockup issues, broken pins, and failure to eject. And because it was aimed at the entry-level market, corners were cut in both design and materials. It's the kind of shotgun that works until it doesn't, and when it doesn't, you're stuck with a range toy that can't be trusted in the field. For hunting or home defense, that's unacceptable. 7. Cobra Terminator single-shot shotgun. This shotgun looks like something built in a backyard, and unfortunately, it performs about the same. The Cobra Terminator was marketed as an ultra-affordable single-shot 12-gauge for beginner shooters or survival kits. But calling it cheap is being generous. The finish is rough, the stock feels like hollow plastic, and the safety, questionable at best. Multiple users have reported misfires and light strikes. The brake action mechanism is sloppy and often fails to lock up tight, which is a red flag when you're dealing with high-pressure shotgun shells. And if that wasn't enough, the recoil is absolutely brutal. It has no padding, no shock absorption, just raw kick straight to the shoulder. Some buyers picked it up thinking, hey, how bad can a $100 shotgun be? The answer, bad enough to make you swear off budget firearms forever. 6. Lyman DB 4. 10 Derringers are supposed to be compact, last-ditch self-defense weapons. Easy to carry, quick to deploy. But the Lyman DB 410? It's a nightmare packed into a tiny frame. Chambered in 410 or 4.5 Colt, this little pocket cannon kicks like a donkey in heat, and with its minuscule size, there's no way to control that recoil. Every shot feels like your hand got slapped with a hammer. Add in poor machining, and you've got a gun that literally rattles apart with use. Shooters have complained about loosening barrels, misaligned bores, and in some cases, mechanical failure after fewer than 100 rounds. The problem isn't just discomfort, it's safety. A Derringer that doesn't lock up properly or fires slightly out of alignment can send shrapnel into your hand or face. That's not concealed carry, that's concealed danger. 5. Keltech KS7 shotgun. The KS7 has the looks. It's futuristic, lightweight, and compact. But beneath that sci-fi shell lies one of the most frustrating shooting experiences you can buy. Keltech built the KS7 as a budget alternative to the KSG, but they forgot one thing: practicality. The recoil is punishing, far worse than other 12 gauges in its class. Why? The lightweight polymer frame transfers every bit of energy straight into your shoulder. And it gets worse when you realize the controls are awkwardly placed, making reloads clunky and operation confusing for anyone not used to Keltech's oddball designs. Feeding issues are also common. Some shells stick, some double feed, And clearing a jam under stress is not something this shotgun handles well. In a home defense situation, hesitation could cost you everything. And the KS7 just doesn't inspire confidence. 4. Taurus Millennium Series, pre-lawsuit models. Taurus built its reputation on budget-friendly handguns, but with the original Millennium series, they almost burned that reputation to the ground. Before the massive class action lawsuit, these pistols were riddled with safety issues, accidental discharges, even when the safety was engaged, reports of guns firing when dropped, misfires due to internal parts failures, and a trigger system that felt like rolling dice with every pull. The lawsuit affected nearly 1 million pistols, forcing Taurus to offer buybacks or repairs, but not before thousands of owners were left with guns that couldn't be trusted. Imagine drawing your weapon in a high-stress moment and the safety fails, or worse, the gun fires when it hits the ground. No responsible gun owner wants that on their conscience or in their holster. 3. Remington Model 700 with Walker trigger. This is one of the most infamous design flaws in gun history. The Remington 700 is a legendary rifle, accurate, powerful, and widely loved. But early models came with the Walker fire control system, a trigger design that had a deadly flaw. The rifle could fire without the trigger being pulled. It happened when the safety was disengaged or even when the bolt was touched. Multiple fatal accidents have been linked to this defect. In one case, a child was killed when a rifle discharged while being unloaded. Remington denied responsibility for years until the weight of lawsuits and public pressure forced them to recall millions of rifles. Here's the scary part. Many owners never sent their rifles in, meaning thousands of defective guns are still out there. The lesson? Even iconic guns can harbor dangerous secrets. Always check your serial numbers. Always. 2. Sig Sauer P320, early models. SIG had a massive win when the US military chose the P320 as its new service pistol. But behind the scenes, things weren't so smooth. Early civilian models of the P320 had a terrifying flaw. They could fire when dropped. Multiple videos surfaced online showing the pistol discharging when it hit the ground at certain angles. The problem was the trigger design, which lacked a trigger safety tab, unlike Glock's system. Law enforcement officers were injured, lawsuits were filed, and while SIG eventually issued a voluntary upgrade, many users felt the fix was rushed and didn't fully address concerns. A duty pistol that fires just from falling? That's not just a defect, it's a liability. In critical situations, you need to trust your gear completely. The early P320 shook that trust to its core. 1. Remington R51, first edition. And finally, the worst of the worst. The Remington R51 First Edition might just be the biggest embarrassment in modern handgun manufacturing. It was hyped as a sleek, modern revival of a classic pocket pistol. But when it hit the shelves, it was a disaster. Guns jammed constantly. Magazines wouldn't seat properly. The slide failed to lock back. Worst of all, several R51s suffered out-of-battery detonations, a dangerous condition where the gun fires before the slide fully closes. That's not just a malfunction, that's a gun blowing up in your hand. The backlash was immediate. Remington was forced to recall the entire first production run. Even the reissued Gen 2 models couldn't fully erase the memory of how badly the R51 launch went. It became a case study in how overhyping and under-engineering can destroy both a product and a brand. Anyone who bought the original learned the hard way. Cool ads don't mean safe guns. What ties all these guns together? They weren't just flawed, they were dangerous, overhyped, or downright useless when it counted most. And sadly, most of them lured buyers in with budget price tags, flashy features, or familiar brand names. But as we've seen, price isn't the only thing that matters. Performance, reliability, and safety can't be ignored. If you're shopping for a firearm today, take this list as a warning. Don't let cool marketing or a low price convince you to gamble with your safety. Always do your research, test before you trust, and never ignore red flags. Because when it comes to guns, regret can cost more than money. Oh, and if you made it this far, you're clearly smarter than most of the people who bought these guns. So give yourself some credit And hey, why not hit that like button while you're here? Drop a comment if you've ever owned one of these firearms or barely avoided buying one. And if you're into gun reviews, myths, and breakdowns like this, make sure to subscribe. We're just getting started.